It's 6:30. I will call the July 14th, 2021 meeting to order. I'll start off with chair remarks. First is we have a change in town councilor liaison. Councilor Ed Dabrowski will be our new town councilor liaison. A little bit of a change. So during the town council retreat, they kind of changed the liaison structure. The liaisons won't be attending all board meetings. They were a little stretched thin, I guess, in that aspect. So a lot of communication will be directed through the chair, from the chair to the liaisons. So if there's anything that we want to convey, or if Ed wants to reach out, so a little bit of a change there. Questions or anything? And then public statements. Just like to make a request and reminds all board members going forward that when speaking in public is to clearly state that you're not speaking on behalf of the board and only for yourself. An example statement of something like this would be, my name is Tom Betcher. I'm here as a Wakefield citizen and a ratepayer. I'm also a commissioner on the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Board. The comments I offer today are my own and do not represent the opinions of my four fellow board members, Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light staff or management, other ratepayers in Wakefield public officials, or town employees or representatives. To that, I'd also like to add some 2015A clarifying information just out there for the public. The last time this board voted on 2015A was in 2017. Only one of the 5 board members who voted to approve the project in 2017 is on the board today. The project has been on pause for a minimum of 30 days to address concerns brought to the MWEC board by stakeholders, while also considering alternative. MWEC has noted that much has changed in technology since the project was first proposed more than 5 years ago, making the need to reassess more necessary. The design of the plant is changing based on stakeholder input, and the current board has not voted on the project, and the position of current board members on the final design of this project is not known or documented. I'd also like to congratulate the Wakefield's Gas and Light on their performance recognition. Pete sent that out today. The American Public Power as a smart energy provider. That's awesome. I applaud. Please extend my thanks to all of the staff there. I know you guys worked really hard at that. And that's also accompanying the other 2 awards this year from the APGA in recognition of the system operational achievements, and then for the gas side, and then the electrical side from the APPA as a reliable public power provider for organizational, operational, and excellence. As we all know, you guys do a tremendous job, and I couldn't be more proud of the management team and all the staff. So please convey that to the staff. Other commissioner reports.
I just had an update on the Green Communities project. And it's actually not much of an update. We were set to have a call today, but actually it was postponed a week due to vacations. So, but one thing I want to do is just commend Jeff Morris for all of his work, getting 3 years of municipal building data into Mass Energy Insight. It looks great. It's all up in there for the most part. We're checking into a few minor things, but it's looking very good. And I'll be able to provide essentially a walkthrough of the data. Could be on our next meeting if you'd like. And I plan to provide a walkthrough of the data for town officials and other folks in the Green Community Project team next Wednesday.
Thank you. Any other commissioner reports? We don't have our town council liaison present, so we will skip those comments. Opening it up to public comments. I see there's a 781 phone number out there. Do we have any public comments?
Yeah, hi, this is Micah Canistero. How are you?
Good, Mike. Just for the record, I need you to state your name and your street address.
Yeah, sure, no problem. My full name is Micah Canistero, and my property address is 101 Cedar Street, Wakefield, Mass.
Thank you. Go ahead with your comments.
Sure. Is this Pete speaking?
No, this is, oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's Tom, our chair. I am here though. Our ops manager, our financial manager, and I are here as well as the board.
Oh, great. Thanks, Pete. I was wondering if you had a chance to share my the information, the email that I shared with you
I
in
did.
advance of the call.
Yeah, I shared
Great.
it with the entire board yesterday when you sent it.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So I don't know if you would like me to kind of restate the comments or if there's feedback from my initial email.
I also shared with Jim Brown the comments, and he doesn't fully agree with everything that was stated there in terms of the earlier discussions. But you could state your side of the story if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and
Yeah, sure.
make your comments, and then from there we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll just sort of start at the beginning. So 101 Cedar Street has been owned and operated as a daycare. You know, my mother purchased it in 1982. She passed away in 2003. There was a director at the time when she passed away, took over the daycare. I've been the owner of the property since my mother's passed away. You know, during COVID, the business had to shut down just because of the shelter-in-place orders, and kind of left with, do I sell the property? Do I try and fix it up, make it be a nice rental for the neighborhood? And at the end of the day, I decided I was gonna apply for a variance, got an approval for a fourplex at the end of last year, shortly after the school shut down. And, you know, in the preliminary stages, as I was doing the planning around the building, I was exploring my options to move away from oil, a more efficient form of use of energy. And so, you know, I called up the gas department, spoke with the supervisor, Jim Brown, told him the situation, told him about the variance that I applied for. I thought it was going to be approved, and wanted to know if, you know, gas was on Cedar Street, you know, whether it'd be available to tap into for my project, which was, you know, in process of being approved for a fourplex. I said, yep, there is gas there, but it would probably be best to wait till you actually get an approval. Said, okay, well, that's great to know. I'd like to move to natural gas as we're, you know, considering the demo on the property. So flash forward early 2021, I gave a call back after I got the approval from the town. Submitted my application. Prior to submitting my application, I called back up, just making sure I do everything right, because I was really trying to avoid a situation like this. And I asked if I should, you know, apply for one service or four services, given there's 4 units that I'm applying for on the property. And, you know, spoke with Jim directly. He said, no, you can just apply, once, and, you know, someone will be assigned to you, and you can have a discussion on site. But okay, so submit the application, gets approved, or I get a call back that we can order service on the have a meeting on site to look at, you know, how they're going to trench the property and get access for the new gas line. You know, just from a timeline standpoint, this was February 22nd that application was submitted. April 28th, spoke with Jim. He informed me that we can trench to the building. John Davis was assigned April 30th. I'm not sure when he actually performed the first site visit, but there was a couple. He met my uncle, who's a general contractor over at the property, the GC, and kind of said, yeah, we'll probably run the line through here. So everything seemed all systems go, you know, and trying to line up the project. We, of course, were starting to move forward with demolition, and we removed the furnace, which was only about 5 years old, removed the oil tank, because it really didn't seem like there was going to be the situation that I'm in right now. And so, May 18th, and I attached a receipt where we, had it ordered to be removed and everything. May 24th, John Davis visited the property again, this time saying that we can only have one line going into the property for gas line for the entire building. That wasn't what I originally, that was not originally what I was originally told. And so I said, okay, well, who do I need to speak to? Because there's clearly a miscommunication. So talked to Jim, called up Jim. I said, Jim, they're telling me I can only have one gas line going into the building. This is a fourplex. It's not really ideal. I may actually condo this thing when it's all finished. And he said, well, our hands are kind of tied. He told me about the changes that took place a couple of years ago. I was like, well, this is really news to me. It's like, well, you can bring it up to my boss. I called his boss. I don't recall his name. He told me, no, you actually can't have a line to service the whole building. You can only have a line to service common areas. I said, there's no common areas. This is a fourplex. They all have their own entrances. I'm looking to get separate utilities. Like, oh, that's not possible. I said, well, I just talked to Jim, and he said I could have at least one gas line going to the property to service the whole property. That's not ideal for my scenario, though. He said, oh, well, Jim's mistaken. I called up Jim, and I said, Jim, I was told that I can only have one gas line to service the common areas. He said, oh, that's not true. I'll call up my boss, and I'll get to the bottom of this. I'll call you back. And the same day, I called Pete, and I said, Pete, I'm in a pickle here. I just removed my oil tank, my furnace. I'm really in a jam, and I'm proceeding with getting gas. I've made plans to move to gas, and I'm being told that now I can only have gas in my property for common area, and there's really no common area. Pete, I believe you were going to circle back with Jim and the supervisor just to see like where all the disconnects were and get everyone on the same page. We haven't spoke since then. Maybe you could give me an update on how those conversations went.
Yeah, I mean, Jim basically said that in the prior conversations, there was only talk of a single service. The facility itself was only a single facility at the time. He knew nothing about 4 units until the later conversation. And the application that was submitted on February 22nd did not mention anywhere about 4 services. It's just a single service application for 101 Cedar Street. And the board does have a copy of the application.
Right. As I said, it didn't seem like
I
there
don't
was
have a copy of the application. All I have is that email that he sent to Jim, but I didn't see the actual application.
It was a subsequent email on that same string, Jack.
I didn't see it. All I saw was the email that went through. That went to Jim that said that he wanted service at 101 Cedar Street, but it wasn't an official application.
Jack,
just
the
an email.
application, the application is attached to the email. The attachment is labeled MX-5071, and then the date code after it. It's a PDF.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, Jack, it's just a printout of, because it's an online application, that's how it goes to Jim. So you're seeing the form, I think.
That's not, no, Pete, that's not the online application. I looked yesterday at the online application, and it specifically has a question that says, is this multifamily or single family? And you have to pick one or the other. And that question is not on it. So this is just an email. It wasn't an application. Nobody ever asked the customer if he wanted gas for multi-service.
The online, that change that you're referring to, Jack, was made at Tom's request subsequent to this application.
Oh, it's the old application. Okay, now I understand.
That clarification point was made after, based on changes we made to the application to try to avoid this type of situation.
So guys, I'm in a real jam here. I'm asking for help. I think we can all agree there was some miscommunication that took place. There's actually been modifications to your application since my scenario. I'm really begging the town to consider, my request. I'm in such a jam right now with the cost of this project. Everything is astronomically high, as everybody knows, construction costs, labor costs. You know, I'm contemplating putting oil back in there, frankly, and it's just crazy. The position I found myself in, and so, you know, I hate to even drop names like Jim, because he was a pleasure to work with. I mean, he's quick to follow up. He's pleasant on the phone, but I'm just laying out the facts. You know, there's been some time since he and I spoke. I'm sure he has 1,000 phone calls. I have a very clear recollection of the conversation. So, you know, I'm really asking for help here.
Mika, this is Commissioner Phil Corsi. I recently replaced my oil tank and got quotes for my oil boiler. The oil tank to remove and replace was $2,400, and the boiler quotes, depending upon size, were between $9,000 and $10,000. Is that about your expectation if you go, what you'll spend if you go back with oil?
Oh yeah, I think more than that, because I mean, if I'm going through this whole effort, I probably should get, I should probably do it right. I mean, I don't know if I can afford it, but I'm trying to get separate utilities for each unit. But yeah, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. The furnace that I had removed was 5 years old, and that was $16,000 to install.
Yeah, but
I'm starting with
Micah,
scratch.
that furnace wouldn't have served your need anyway, because it was only for a single family unit. It wouldn't have served for separate condo units.
Right, and that's true. And I was only going to separate the units if I could get new gas service. I wasn't, you know, I'm juggling costs here, and so you know, to have one gas line would be the same to have one boiler service. You know, and if I couldn't get multiple gas lines, I wouldn't have removed the furnace, or I certainly would have explored my options further. But I hear your point there, and it's something that you know, I've thought about as well, trying to look at the you know, just you know, how to proceed forward, and trying to look at the glass half full. Like, okay, maybe I would have had to replace it anyways, but you know, I think that may have been something I avoided, because there is a material cost to separate the utilities. But I thought there was a benefit to doing it if I could move forward with the gas line.
This is Phil Corsi again. Have you gone into the air conditioning and heating people and looked at the heat pump option yet?
I have. That's my backup plan, and it's, you know, it's I'm coming here to, you know, ask for help, but I am exploring other options, because I need to figure out something else to do. So, you know, I think it depends on who you speak to. They'll tell you oil. They'll tell you electric heat pumps. They'll tell you, you know, propane, and my head's spinning a little bit, frankly, because I'm not a real estate investor. I'm not trying to set up a precedent for you know, coming to the board for requests like this ever again in the future. I now understand the details more clearly, certainly a lot more clear than after my initial discussions. So, you know, I'm still weighing my options and considering all the costs.
So before I close down public comment, I have a couple of questions. Are you on the 4 units? Were you planning on putting in air conditioning in those units?
Yeah, I'm going to have air conditioning. It's going to be a very nice property. I'm probably spending more money on it than I should, but I'm trying to make something nice for the town. It's a corner lot. It's you know, the entrance to Cedar Street. Trying to do everything right. And yeah, so air conditioning would be an amenity I'd like to have for my tenants.
So I would implore you to, reach out to our consultant Abode, who we provide for free to around heat pump. Your project, quite frankly, is ideal for a heat pump conversion. And more than likely, I would think you would potentially be cash positive in terms of if you were putting in 4 natural gas boilers, trenching a line, all of that work that goes around that. and then the ductwork, air conditioning condensers for each of those. That all gets consolidated into a heat pump, and then adding in our incentives and rebates with each one of those units. Pete and I did talk, and he would be, the utility would be willing to extend those rebates to each of those units to do that. And, your project seems ideal for that. And then I'll just say, the reason, just kind of going, clarifying why we have the moratorium and why it sits at, we made the decision point for multifamilies. The primary goal of the gas moratorium was to reduce and not increase our peak demand. So the gas supply into New England is pipeline constrained. We have a real issue during our coldest days that we may not be able to service our obligations to existing customers on our network. So, and then the price volatility that also comes along with that. So, that was kind of why the moratorium is, or that is the primary goal, why the moratorium was put into place. So just, around that, and then, we as commissioners, we can kind of discuss this as well. So I'll, I'm gonna close down public comments. I'll just let you, if you've got anything else to say, you can say that. And then at the chair's discretion, if you wanna ask a question, if you're recognized, then, during the meeting, we can allow you to speak at that point, but those are just kind of open meeting laws that are in place. So you just had any closing comments before I close this section down, and then we can discuss. And
yeah, I would just say to consider that there shouldn't be any ambiguity with future applications, because you've improved the application. There's tremendous ambiguity when I applied, as well as with discussions that I had with various individuals, within the gas department. I would really appreciate, the consideration for my request. I don't know, because I've never been through a process like this, if this is something that's going to be taken back and considered, or is this something, what are our next steps, or is there a decision being made here?
so we as a board will, discuss this, and I don't, depending on how the board discussions goes, I can't guarantee that we'll have any resolution tonight or not, but we'll keep you informed.
Will I get a phone call or an email?
Yes, we'll reach out, and you're welcome to stay. That the meeting is open, so you're welcome to stay if you want.
Are you going to be discussing my application during this meeting? Sorry to be so green to this process. I'm just not sure whether I should stay on the line or just wait for word back.
Other commissioners, do we want to discuss this now?
This is Commissioner Kelly. I think we should discuss it now.
Okay. I was having the feel I didn't know what the other commissioners. I am a little sad. I do know that Jack has a hard stop at 7:30, unfortunately, tonight. So, and we have a lot of. Oh, 8:30. Okay, sorry, much better. All right.
It would probably be fair to Elton, to Micah, to probably give him a decision tonight, just so that he's not.
All right.
Well, we can't do that, but anyway, so let's go ahead and start the discussion. If I may, so this is Jack Washaw. I don't agree 100%, Tom, with how you described the reason that we went with the moratorium. And just so Mr. Conisaro knows, I'm the one guy that you mentioned who was still on the board, who was on the board at the time when we voted for the moratorium.
No, Jack, that was 2015A. Sorry, the only board member that didn't vote for the moratorium was Elton.
Okay, I misunderstood. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Sorry.
So anyways, but I believe that we voted in that moratorium to exclude the multifamilies, not to reduce the peak, but to try to stop it from getting out of hand. And we were trying to prevent gas from being used in all these developments going up all over the place. But we didn't stop oil to gas conversions in single family homes. Right, so we're still increasing the peak a little bit. So it wasn't to reduce the peak, but it was to keep it from getting out of hand. But what I think in this case, well, first of all, I'd like Mr. Conisar to answer a quick question for me, which is, what is the footprint of the property? How is the footprint changing?
Its footprint, yeah, sure, glad to answer that question. The footprint is not changing at all. The square footage is not changing at all. As you mentioned, single family homes can still get new gas service. Of course, I'm converting it, gutting it, refinishing it. So, new windows, new siding, new insulation, new roof. I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, this thing is going to go from a 2 to a 10. So, if I were to have kept it a single family and made a request for a gas service, it would have been approved, and it would have been heat and air conditioning flying out the windows because it was a very drafty property. It's about a 4,000 square foot property. Each unit is about 3 units are about between 800 and 1,000 feet, and then 1 unit is closer to 1,600 square feet. So, that's the current.
Yeah,
yeah.
but foundation is the same, and okay. All
Yeah,
right.
we're not adding a single square foot.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the discussion. So here's my problem with the moratorium that we voted in. We have this home on Cedar Street that hasn't been expanded, right? It's not a a 3-story or a 5-story or whatever condo development right in the heart of downtown. That's an eyesore that everyone's complaining about. And by comparison, we had a small farmhouse on Prospect Street, 107 Prospect Street, and that got converted to gas, but it wasn't just a single residence. It turned out they took the house down and built 3 McMansions, and we said that's fine. So you can take down a small home and replace it with 3 McMansions, and we're okay with that. But here we have the house on Cedar Street. It hasn't been expanded. He just wants to convert it to gas, but because it's a multifamily instead of separate residence, he could have put in a bunch of cabins and we would have said, okay. But he kept the same footprint, and now we're saying no because it's a multifamily. So I think that this is a gray area, and I think that we should not grant an exception to the moratorium, because I don't think we should be in the business of doing any exceptions, because that could line us up for a lawsuit in the future if we say yes to this customer and then we say no to the next one. But I think we can revise the moratorium to say if it's the same footprint, then you can convert. But if you're going to build a new structure altogether, then no. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Kelly. So I agree that over time we're going to become aware of building practice. So first of all, Wakefield doesn't have very tight building practices, and I think we're seeing a lot of development that is challenging our town. And we're seeing single family homes that are 8,000 square feet being built. So, and we don't yet have good building policy in this town to address those issues. So that doesn't necessarily have to do with this board, but it's just something that needs to be said. We haven't caught up with the development fully. I agree that over time, we're going to become aware of situations that don't fall neatly into the black and white areas that we thought when we set up this policy. And I think it's right to continue to evolve the policy over time to address that. But the way I would evolve this policy or consider is to go forward rather than backwards. And if you're going to have a new construction, no matter what, that should potentially be included in the moratorium rather than not included in the moratorium. So I think we should.
So you're
I think,
saying that,
Go ahead.
from now on, we won't allow the McMansions?
Sure.
Well,
The project on Prospect Street shouldn't have gotten gas?
I mean, I think we should discuss it, but my recommendation would be to go forward rather than backward with that policy. Yes.
This is
Well, if that's,
go ahead, Jack.
hold on, so one more quick thing. If we were to go that way, then we should start it today. To say, okay, from now on, you can't take down a single family home and replace it with multiple homes. And so from today, that'll be the new policy. But because we allow those McMansions to go in, you know, in the past, then we should clean the slate right now, let this project go through with gas, and then say from now on, we're going to tighten it and no more gas. So you can't take down a single family home and make multiple houses out of it and get a multiple single family services.
Is that a question to me or a statement?
That's my opinion. That's my statement.
So I would propose, in the spirit of the moratorium, this, in terms of black and white, this clearly falls under the moratorium. This is going from a single family home to a multifamily home. The building type is changing and it clearly falls under that. I would like to see, before we, make a change like that, that Mr. Cannizzaro, really look at the heat pump option. I truly believe that from a, even a capital outlay cost and then definitely long-term operating costs, the heat pump option is the most cost advantage way to go. I personally converted, a rental home that I have here in Wakefield from oil to heat pump. My tenant is extremely happy with having the heat and AC through that. His most expensive electric bill for the entire winter, so the coldest month in the winter, that one bill was $230 for that. That's, my gas bill is not, it's way more than that. Especially if you are looking to sell these units as condos, I think that that's actually beneficial, that the operating costs are much lower. I would like to see that explored before we kind of make a change. I am also of the kind of same opinion of Commissioner Clay, moving forward, that we would, if we were going to change the policy, that we just, include single family homes for that, because, the goal of the policy is to stabilize the peak and not to increase demand on our infrastructure and our gas supply.
I would also say that, I suffer from the same problem. I'm trying to replace my now plus 40-year-old oil boiler. And looking at an addition on the house, which heat pump would be perfect for, but then converting the main house is quite a challenge. But I don't have gas on the street. There's no ability to get gas on the street. And even if I did get gas, the environmentalists are trying to remove and put every obstacle in the way to get rid of gas by 2030. So 8 years from now, there's no return on investment. So yeah, I would also like to see at least getting to the point of working with the AC heat pump people and get some estimates and get a bracket around the target of the burden that we're asking for here. How much would it be? What's the cost? And because I'm leaning here to be sympathetic with this customer.
The other thing that
And
I just want to mention that I don't know if we have is that we do have a financing program, Micah, for all all heating system conversions. And I don't know whether you would be eligible for it or interested, but it's actually quite comprehensive and a very good program. So I just wanted to raise
Yeah.
that in case you were not aware.
No, I do appreciate. I know there's a number of programs that the town offers, and once I got through this meeting and had a little more direction, I was going to investigate that further.
Commissioner Christie, you seem to.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to add a couple of points. So first of all, personally, I just added a heat pump, electric heat pump on my home, and it's probably the way to go. And I highly recommend you look into that option to begin with and sort of do a cost comparison on it as well. So I'll be surprised if the heat pump cost would come in higher than the regular gas furnaces, considering all the different local incentives and rebates and state rebates that you get as part of like federal tax filings. In addition to that, though, I happened to drive by this location a couple of weeks ago, and not that I want to.
Elton, I think we lost
you
right
on whether the print of the house.
Oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we lost you at right when you were saying drive.
Can you guys
by.
hear me okay or no?
Yep, we can hear you now. And we lost you right at drive by.
All right. So I happened. Okay. So I happened to be driving by, and I thought what looked like an addition to the house, but I could be wrong, and don't take me for granted on that. I could be wrong. The other thing with what Jack was, I think that we should extend the moratorium to the single family houses as well, not just multi-unit dwellings. And that would be sort of the way to go forward in regards to any potential future gas expansions that we would have to put a moratorium on, not just multi-unit families, but also single unit families as well.
If I could just address the comment around the addition, this is Micah. So there wasn't an addition being put on it. The town doesn't allow any additional square footage when you convert from a single family to a multi-family. So that wouldn't be permittable. I would actually prefer if I could have added square footage, because there's a nice area on the building where you could go up on what was an additional addition. But what we probably saw was there was an office that was added, I don't know, probably 40 years ago, that the floor started to sink in. So we had to, some worms in an old building. We had to tear out the wall and replace the floor in a certain section of the building. More hair on this project.
Yeah, I think as other commissioners have stated, that I think you would be surprised to find, when you take all of the costs into consideration, from air conditioning, heating, the trenching cost, and all of the stuff that's around there. And since I also actually today, just coincidentally, I had to drop my children off at the park there. I drove by that. This is why I think your project's ideal in terms of putting in a heat pump, where you wouldn't have the challenges that Commissioner Corsi has, where it's finished. Adding those into your existing, it's open frame at this point. So putting that infrastructure into place wouldn't be any different than what you would do for AC. So you're kind of swapping out two HVAC units for one. So that one unit's going to do your both air conditioning and heating as well.
If I could just add that when we originally went to the moratorium, we felt that the multifamily situations, and especially, Micah, exactly what you're doing here, where it's a complete conversion, you're well suited to adapt to the changes required with a heat pump situation, as opposed to Phil's situation, where the older portion of the home is harder and more costly to convert as opposed to an addition. In the situation you're in, you're going to see that the 4 units are going to benefit from each other as well. That combined with the fact that you are planning to put in central air also, putting those 2 things together, you'd have to have a gas heating system for each unit and a central air system for each unit. If you combine those costs and then compare that to the heat pump, and the heat pump we have much more significant rebates for also. So if you put all that together, I think you'll see combining that also with the energy loan that you can get locally as part of our programs, there's a multitude of reasons why it would be beneficial to go to the heat pump, but especially in the stage of your construction right now, you'd be well suited to go to the heat pump model.
How do we get them started?
I've given him the number for Abode, but I'll email you again tomorrow morning. I would talk directly to Abode, who's our consultant, that is very, very, very knowledgeable in this area. They can walk you through a lot of the issues. They're very familiar with our rebate program. They're very, very familiar with the technology, and they're very familiar with the list of contractors that are available to do that type of work. And I think, as Tom has said, if you compare putting in 2 sets of systems, and again, a lot of the work you would have to do to put the heat pumps in, you would have to do for the central air as well. So combining all of that, I think you're going to find that it's at least comparable in cost, if not cheaper.
I'll explore it. I look forward to getting his contact information and taking a look.
Awesome. Are there any, so going forward, you'll explore the Abode. Is there any motions from any of the commissioners at this point, or are we tabling this till sorry, lost my train of thought there.
I'm
Mr. Conacero,
for
come back to us.
tabling it. I'm for you know, let's explore this before we change policy.
Okay. All right.
So the other one thing I would suggest, if we are going to change the moratorium policy, is we have Mike McCarthy look at the words to make sure we write it correctly, so that we make sure that, you know, it was kind of, I agree that it's a little bit loose in terms of its definition, but we've been trying to follow it to the letter of the law, which means no multis at all. And I think if we need to tighten up the words, and if we are going to add single family, that we look at it and make sure we have all the right words as we take that next step.
May I ask 2 clarifying questions on our current policy while we're talking about it?
Mhm.
Is multi 4 units and up, or 2, anything more than 1?
Anything more than 1.
Okay,
And that we've been very, very consistent with that, and that's what's, you know, and when we started to go down the ladder of should it be 3, should it be 2, it was just easier that if it's anything more than 1, it was a lot easier to interpret that way and just make it that way. And the other thing I am a little concerned about is that we have, you know, they haven't necessarily come to the board, but we've told people in Micah's situation in the past that we couldn't provide gas. So, you know, in terms of consistency over the past 2 years, we've pointed people in that other direction.
And the second question is about the common area comment. Do we have an exemption for common areas of multifamily buildings? And if so, why?
Because we've simply just allowed, because then we have an owner of service, and we have allowed a single service. So therefore, we felt that was within the bounds of, it's a single service for a common area, and the owner has to maintain it. In Micah's case, it doesn't apply because they're going to have 4 separate owners. Whereas if you have a landowner and a homeowner that has 4 separate apartments, we still can charge the homeowner, and the homeowner was still allowed to apply for a single service.
But why have we had any instances where somebody has gas heated a hallway in a multifamily that is electrically heated for the rest of the building?
No.
Okay, so should we
We can tighten that
allow
up,
for
but,
that situation to happen? It just seems strange.
well, but we have allowed gas at multifamily structures for heating, for not heating, for cooking. For example, a large multifamily that's going to have a restaurant on the first floor, we are allowing gas for the cooking purpose.
Is this all written down in our policy?
No,
Is our
that's why we
policy-
need to tighten it up, but we have allowed for common area uses. So that is consistent with what we've been doing.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Jen, I did remember when we initially talked about this, that we, that was an exception, not the common area, but the gas for cooking for like a restaurant and that type of scenario. And
The
that
example would be the building on North Ave and Tono's, we would allow Tono's to cook with gas.
Yep, now I understand. Thank you.
All right. So I think at this point we'll move forward. Mr. Cancera, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for your time in bringing this to the board. We and I certainly appreciate you coming and speaking to us tonight. Please do let us know, either through Pete and his team on your findings through abode and heat pump. And then, as always, any member of the public is more than welcome at any of our board meetings.
Yeah, thanks for having me and listening to the story. I think it's unique, and that's why I just wanted to bring it forward. I think I was sort of a case study for some revisions that needed to take place, because the ambiguity, kind of put me in this scenario today. And I think it can be avoided just as simply as how you've corrected the application process. But for me, as I've already, moved forward and made plans and withdrew, removed utilities, it's kind of a rock and a hard place. But I guess that's all I have to comment on at the moment.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to section C, Secretary's report, approval of the minutes.
Sorry to interrupt. I thought you were going to come to a decision tonight.
Oh, sorry. So I think the decision was that you would go and explore the heat pump option with abode. The decision is we're not going to look at the moratorium policy this evening. It may be something that it will be something that we potentially take up at a next meeting, especially with needing to have council look at the current one and then go forward. But I think the go forward is to have you look at the heat pump route with our consultant, and then come back to us either through Pete and his team or directly to us. If it turns out to be more of a hardship than replacing 4 gas boilers or you're installing 4 gas boilers and 4 air conditioning units, and my ask would be to look at the whole project in terms of the HVAC, so what it costs to trench, to install gas service, the boilers, the AC, the ductwork, and then compare that to what it would look like doing that via the heat pump route.
If it turns out to be more economical and beneficial to go the gas route, do I have permission to move forward?
Not at this time, because it's still your situation still falls under the moratorium under the multifamily, and the board hasn't granted an exception at this point.
So I thought there was going to be a vote. It sounded like a couple of people were leaning in favor, and maybe 1 or 2 were not. It was a little confusing there.
Should we take a formal vote?
Please do.
I'm just throwing it out there
Well,
for clarity.
I'll make a motion that we let me just think about this for a second. I do believe that this customer is getting a raw deal compared to what we did on Prospect Street. And I think it's very unfair.
Thank you.
Not sure how to make the phrasing on this motion, but
do you want me to try?
Could I make a suggestion that we not take a vote tonight and that we talk to Mike? Because we've had other people that have been in the situation that we've declined in the past. And we have to be very careful about what exception we make. And granted, Jack, I know you were concerned about that as we modify the moratorium language, but it actually still applies right now if we're going to take an exception. So I think we should be careful of.
well, that's why, yeah, I said earlier, we can't do an exception. We would have to modify.
As I would prefer that we also don't take a vote and the go forward. The moratorium stands as the unit is changing from single family to multifamily, and that Mr. Conacero explore the through Abode or any other consultant that he wants, but the utility does provide that consultation for free. Explore the heat pump route.
Well, yeah, but he's at a disadvantage because we don't meet in August, so we won't meet again until September.
Yeah,
if other board members are willing, I'd be willing to put another meeting.
Well, just to be fair, Micah was invited to our last board meeting at the beginning of June, and he didn't come because I briefed you all on this. So he was told about that meeting. He spoke to me. He spoke to Tom. So we're creating a 9-alarm fire that didn't need to be a 9-alarm fire because he could have come a month and a half ago.
I work on the West Coast, and it was 3 o'clock Western Standard. I had a meeting that unfortunately was already on the calendar. Believe me, I wanted to be there. This project is #1 priority in my life right now, and I'm trying to nail it all down. Please don't take any misinterpretation from my lack of attendance.
All right, so what I would suggest then is that we add another meeting and we readdress this so that we can give Mr. Canistaro an answer sooner rather than later. But I really think that we need to revisit, and if that means going back and looking at the cases where these types of requests have been denied, as well as looking at cases such as Prospect Street, where they weren't denied because they're not multifamily, and just kind of reevaluate like whether or not the way the policy is being followed is actually carrying out the objective that we've had when we implemented it in the first place. Because it's not working if we're increasing load in some cases and then rejecting load in other cases.
And just one more thing I'd like to add. I wouldn't be coming to you all today had I not gotten misinformation up front from the gas department, months ago, and the miss in the application process. I called and asked how I should submit the application. I was told to submit one application. I can't even remember if I put anything in the comments. I'd be interested to see how that application was submitted, but I certainly didn't remove my furnace and boiler thinking that I could have one gas line to my common areas.
Okay. All right. So will you be exploring the heat pump option, or are you just?
Yeah, I'd be a fool not to. I'll certainly look at I want to look at them side by side. I haven't gone through the exercise of doing that because I'm not sure if it's going to be allowed, and so it's going to take a lot of time to explore these things, and I don't want to necessarily explore things that aren't an option. So I'm really looking for direction from you folks, and then I'll see what my options are, and I have to start making some decisions and keep the construction moving. It's like I said, it's my top priority.
I just
So
as
my-
a clarifying question, when you say not allowed, I took that in the reference of heat pumps not being allowed. Is that misconstrued?
No, what I meant is if the gas service isn't allowed, then I just have to consider the other options for the building. But I'm asking for an exception, so I'm hoping that it'll be granted and I can have more options to consider. But that's why I'm on the line with you folks tonight.
Okay. Yeah, unless there, I would say that we are, not voting on taking an exception this evening. Go forward, look at the heat pump option. We will put another meeting on the books to potentially have a vote on the moratorium. Any other commissioner have any comment or input on that? I will take silence.
Other than we will communicate with our consultant.
Yeah, Mike, I'll reach out to you tomorrow and connect you with a boat so that you can talk to them.
Great. And just so I have a sense of timing, when do you think that next meeting will take place?
Probably generally it's we meet once a month. We generally take August off, so we'll put something on the books for probably in the August timeframe. There's the open meeting law requirement that we post an agenda at least 72 hours prior to the meeting.
But if he had the data prior to then, we could potentially meet sooner, correct? If
Yes.
everyone is available?
Yep.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think,
so I mean, we would just need 70, essentially, if you were to provide us the data, the fastest we could move is, 72 business hours. So, once that's collected, then we can post the meeting and then we could meet.
Okay, just so I'm clear, I should kind of do like a comparison of the different options to get the heating and cooling in the building, and then present it and sort of point to which is the best option, and then ask for a request for that to be considered.
Correct. And Pete, Abode kind of does that as part of their process, where they kind of do the comparison for our customers of these types of conversions.
They work as a consultant to them and point them in the right direction. Yeah.
Okay.
but I
That'd be
would
great.
say, I mean, if you find that if you're satisfied with the heat pump and you're fine that you want to move forward with that, you probably don't need to come back to us. It's really if you find that
Correct.
the gas option is the option. I wouldn't even look, to be honest, at the oil and propane options. So you're really looking, I think, at gas and the electric heat pump. And so if you find that the gas option for some reason is substantially less expensive, that's the data we would want to see in order to contemplate that at the next meeting.
All right, I look forward to digging in and seeing what those costs look like, and weighing the pros and cons. And I'll circle back if everyone I've spoke to has told me that gas is the way to go. But to be honest, I haven't sat down with pen and paper or sat down with something like a boat to look at it, the hard number. So I'll go ahead and do that if it'll be considered. And I really appreciate everybody's time tonight. I know this went way over time, so I'll look forward to hearing from you, Pete, on Abode's info, and I'll circle back if I still want to submit the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Moving on to section C, since there's no other public comments, we have no other members of the public. The approval of the June 2nd meeting minutes. I submitted my changes to Pete. They were just typographical. Are there any other commentary or edits to the minutes?
Yeah,
Yes. Oh,
page,
go ahead. You go.
page 5. Second paragraph, Representative Golden stated that he had concerns to how quickly renewables will be able to come online. Commenting on offshore wind not being the end all, and noting that and it should say design of transmission and distribution for offshore wind has not even begun, and then strike to be built yet. He was noting that even the design phase hasn't started yet. And the second paragraph, Commissioner Calais reported the stretch code on May 8th to the green community. Now you may have this, Jen. She is working with the town manager. I think somebody reading this would want your role defined. Who are you doing this for?
Mhm.
So I think if you could clarify that.
In
And
terms of the data, like uploading the data into MEI.
Are you working with Sustainable? Are you working as the liaison to the?
No, I'm working as a board, sorry, so this is helpful. I'm working as a WMGLD board member.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So you could say she is a WMGLD board member working with WMGLD's IT manager.
Yeah, that would clarify it.
Yep, okay.
And then on page 7, the third paragraph down, in addition, they're looking at adding additional fuels, noting that the Pratt engine can run partially up to 25% on green hydrogen, which would reduce the carbon output below the original forecast of 7,000. I think the 7,000 should say 7,000 tons of CO2.
Yep.
That would clarify that.
Is that annual?
Mhm.
Okay.
Jenny, you want to put annual in there?
Yes, please.
That's all I had for comments.
Other commissioners?
Yes, I have some on page 5. Third paragraph. So there's actually 2 instances on this page of fleet policy. And I just wanted to update that to fuel efficient vehicle policy. There's 2 instances, one in the 3rd paragraph and one in the 4th. And then the last sentence of paragraph 3, she noted that she is happy to share, and then these are the changes, her presentation of the municipal energy use data with the board. And then the other one is on page 11, first sentence. And you might have already corrected this, Tom, but it says Commissioner Calais asked how WMGLD would address a ransom aspect. And I believe that should be attack.
Yeah. Ransomware attack. Actually, I missed that one. Good catch.
And that's it.
Any other edits from anyone else? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 2nd, 2021 minutes
Can put it as amended.
as amended.
Thanks.
I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Corsi,
Aye.
Commissioner Calais,
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty,
Aye.
Commissioner Walshaw,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Vote passes unanimously. Okay. Just, yeah, we can just move on. Jack, was there anything just before we move on that you wanted to, I know you've got about an hour left, to make sure that we cover before you've got to drop? We can move it up.
Well, the only thing, Tom, is I think maybe you and I should talk. I think, looking at the final page of the minutes of the last meeting was talking about board recognition. And I did talk with Nancy Chase, and she definitely wants to do something, and she doesn't know what. And so I think we should talk about what we could possibly do to recognize Ken.
Okay. Yeah, I can open it up to other commissioners on thoughts. Or
One of the things that I'm not sure who mentioned it, it might have been Jack or some or Jen. We're working on that solar project for the roof of the building, and potentially naming that or dedicating that to Ken might be a nice something lasting, and more than just taking him out to dinner. Do you think that that's the type of thing we should consider, Jack?
Well, I think he would love something like that.
I agree. I had that kind of same thought that that there'd be something that we dedicate in his honor that's lasting. I know a lot of the substations are, and the building and that type of stuff. So I would be in favor of that. Is there something I was thinking kind of more that's long term, but more immediate? The dinner and kind of plaque, and I don't know. Do we do a kind of write up?
Well, we have an article that we've written that I could share everybody. I was kind of sitting on it until we kind of had this discussion a little bit more. It might be worthwhile to wait just a little bit longer, because if we are going to take them out to dinner or do something like that, it might be nice to tell them at that time that we're going to name the solar project after him. So I just like to get it's going out to bid and get the bids back in and be sure that that's the route we're going on. And if we decide we're definitely going to do the solar project on the roof, that we could decide to name it after him, and then at a dinner, kind of give him a plaque and tell him that that's what we're going to do. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Yeah, me
Sounds
too.
good.
But like, how long are we thinking?
Probably, and we should have the bids back by our September meeting.
Yeah. Hopefully Ken doesn't watch this Zoom call, or else it'll spoil his surprise.
I don't think so. He usually was sharing Jack's phone, so I'm not guessing he's going back to watch our videos.
I say executive session here.
All right.
But in the minutes, we'll have to keep it high level.
Yeah.
Like we discussed various options for.
Yeah, we'll be generic. Yeah.
Sylvia, you got that? All right. Okay. Moving on to old business, project updates, and Pete, just in terms, and you might have these, but I just had in terms of your update, I had 3 questions. Was just the outage map for mobile devices update, another website kind of cleanup, but just have an easy and clear link to sign up devices under the connected homes. It's actually really difficult to find the link to get to the Muni helps and to sign up devices. It takes me a little bit of time to find it. So we really should make that really easy for folks. And then just if you have an update, where the sense demand management, dashboard system, how they're coming along with that, how, we're interfacing. So as you give your update.
Jeff hasn't at any time. We've been doing a lot of data with Jen, but also we've had 2 major system upgrades that have gone on in the past few weeks. So, so that outage management on mobile devices is probably a little ways out. And I haven't reached out to Sense in a while, but I can talk to them. So there's nothing to do there. In terms of the easier, I'll look at that tomorrow. That's something we could probably do pretty quickly.
All right, thank you.
On the Sense request, though, I would like to request on page 21, I see a Sense Monitor dashboard here. And I think that having the customer information and addresses on this page, I'd like that to be removed, any customer specific information if possible. I think we've done that in most of our other reporting.
Yeah.
Yep. We can. Okay. Anything else on that? In terms of the major projects, I mean, there's a lot of information there. I don't know how much you want to spend time on, but from the electric side, we're still working on a lot of 4 kV conversion. I'll talk a little bit about it in a few minutes when we get to the mid-year update, but the 4 kV work is basically all in the center of town. It's we did add in the replacement of the feeder section for Circuit 4 to the downtown. That was completed in the May-June timeframe. We didn't have that on our plan this year, but we had to do it. So some other conversion work on Circuit 9 has fallen behind a little bit, and we're going to be still basically working on 4 kV conversion in the center of town area for the next couple of years, the rest of this year and through next year. I think most of you probably saw, if you've driven by the McGrail station, the old outdoor gear is gone. If you haven't seen that, that yard is brand new. All the old equipment, all the old gear there is all gone. If you were to come inside the building, you'd see that all the gear inside the building's gone too. So we're doing asbestos abatement in there now, and we're going to convert that to a little bit additional IT storage space, kind of back disaster recovery site, as well as storage. So there's some work going on there right now in that regard. So, but that removing that outdoor gear was a major milestone. The first one was getting those transformers out of there, and the second one was getting that gear out of there. So those are 2 big steps.
I can personally attest how much of a change removing that switch shed just changed that whole corner. It just looks so much better.
Yeah, it's well, and from a reliability perspective, it's made a major step, so it's good. So the next step is obviously our goal is to next year retire the Burns station it's on Ballister off of Albion. And so the work that has to happen between now and then is a lot of the 4 kV conversion work. But our goal is by the end of next year to have the Burns 4 kV station retired as well. So
it's as beautiful as energy infrastructure can get.
Yeah.
Pete, I'm looking at the notes for the major projects, and I think it still says milestone all outdoor 13 kV equipment to be removed in early June. Nothing important, but for the next meeting, do you mind just looking through the notes and make sure that the timelines match as far as what's being completed or whatnot?
Yeah, did we not say that was completed?
Page 25.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we didn't update that, yeah.
Okay.
So, Pete, can I ask what, so the Burns, remind me, where was that one again?
It's on Ballister Street. It's in front of those apartments just off of Albion Street.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's the one that you can't really see from the street, right, from Albion?
Yeah, it's almost like in the front parking lot of that apartment building.
All right, so when that's retired, what's gonna be there? Will there be nothing there?
There'll be probably a couple of pad mounted switches that look similar to what's in the front yard at Wakefield Ave now.
All right, so my concern here is the legacy and memory of Matty Burns' brother. That was his brother, I believe, or maybe it was his uncle. And so I'm just kind of thinking, like, if that disappears, like, what happens to the fact that it was named after him and now there's nothing there? So, well, you know, could we still have a memorial, something there?
Yeah,
I mean,
we could call it the Burns switching station or something like that. It's still gonna have to have a fence around it. So
Okay.
we could call it the Burns switching station.
Pete, is
We'll
there
have to do-
currently any sort of plaque, or because I know, like, you know, in front of the Wakefield Ave, there's the McGrail, like you have the little
Yeah,
stone with
there's a plaque at the Burns station.
Okay, and that'll remain with this.
Well, we might do a new one, especially if we could probably do some kind of nicer memorial out in front.
Okay.
Once we redo it, you know, the footprint is gonna shrink a little bit, but we could probably do something nice around it.
I think it would be good if we did that, you know, just to honor the decision of the board, but, you know, way back when. But yeah, I mean, I think he died on the job, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, you might know. I don't know if you know.
I'm not sure. Oh,
So sorry, what was the proposal to do with the site? I missed it.
So it's currently a one transformer substation. It's going to be reduced to a switching station where you're going to have some pad mounted, 1 or 2 pad mounted switches. And so the footprint's going to shrink dramatically. There won't be there may or may not be a transformer there, but if there is, it'll be a pad mounted switch or, excuse me, a small transformer. So we would just shrink the footprint but probably still keep it dedicated as like a switching yard instead of a substation.
Is there any potential to consider leaving the footprint so that we could put a battery? Is it sized big enough to put a battery there, and could we move the switching gear to the side?
I'm not sure if we could fit a battery. It's possible, but we can look at it. But again, we could leave it for the future, but there's no capital plan for the battery over there right now.
Right. I don't mean doing it now. I just wouldn't want to decrease the fence line now if you plan to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, and also if you put the switches off to the side and not in the middle so that we can't use the remaining site. So that kind of thing.
Yep. Okay. On gas, we've been trying to work closely with the town on keeping police details available so that, you know, so we've been working on some side streets, but we told them today in our meeting, we've been meeting monthly now with the DPW and the police. You know, it's kind of a major increase in our number. Our original memorandum of understanding was we're going to meet twice a year. We meet every month now. And that's good, but we are going back to work on Vernon and Lowell the week after next. We're wrapping up a lot of our stuff that we've done on smaller streets, so we will be going back to Vernon and Lowell. The regulator station on Lowell will start in the beginning of August. And services on Lowell and Vernon Street will be part of that. The last part of the year will be Cedar and Emerson. So in terms of meter replacements and all that, we're moving along very well on that. And also on our moving meters outside. I don't know if there's any other questions. So in terms of the grid stuff, you're probably following the paper what's going on. There's still a lot of issues there. We're trying to do our part to the extent we can in terms of keeping police details available for them to try to finish that work, while still managing the fact that we have to get stuff done too. But we've been trying to be cooperative. I will say that there is a level of frustration with the town because we've been dancing off on the side streets for 2.5 months now to try to keep police details available, and the town keeps shutting them down from finishing that work. So it is a little frustrating on our part because we kind of stepped aside and did a lot of other work, and they've still had them shut down from finishing. So it may be an issue going forward, but we're trying to do our best to play nice in the sandbox. But they still need to finish Broadway and Albion, and it's going to happen sometime. And I have no control over making that work get done, but the more times the town shuts them down, the longer it's going to take to just get it done. So that's where we are. But we did try to do our part over the past 3 months and stay off the main routes. After our contractors left 3 months ago from doing the main work, we wanted to go right to work on that, but we stayed on side streets to try to accommodate police details and United Civil, and it probably hasn't been fully taken advantage of. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. From a COVID perspective, I think this might be the place to talk about what we want to do in September. I think the governor did sign the extension of the meeting law that allows us to meet exactly like this. And so we just have to decide if we're going to go back to meeting in person or if we can continue doing this. My personal suggestion, based on what we're seeing with the numbers starting to trickle back up again and the difficulty in potentially policing people coming in and out of the building, whether they're vaccinated or not, does make it a challenge. I think, based on, Micah's ability to join us tonight, and we've had more, people at other meetings. I'm still not opposed to staying in this format until, there's more progress on COVID, but again, that you guys can discuss that.
This is Jen. I'd love to be back in person myself, but I know that there are challenges with the, members of the public and the participation. I guess, clarifying question, do you have the ability to host the public and any presenters outside of our immediate group remotely from that conference room?
We'd have to work on that. I think we wouldn't let people in. We're not letting anybody in the building without wearing a mask. So there's mask rules. The only people in the building that don't wear a mask are people that have demonstrated that they're vaccinated. So you get into all those issues. That's why I still think we're cleaner doing this than being in person. But again, you guys can, we're going to have the masked and the not masked and all that stuff. And I really don't want to have to deal with policing people like that. So, and I don't think there's a way to necessarily, if we have the public meeting in the building, I don't think there's a way to necessarily turn people away if they choose to come in.
No, I checked with that because that was one of the things that I wanted clarification is if we were to meet in person and follow the, the open meeting law guidelines that have been established, which essentially says we could do a hybrid approach. The chair has to be in person. Other members could be remote, kind of like what you're seeing with, school committee and town council. But we cannot exclusionary say public can only be in a Zoom session. So we would have to be opened up to both. So the public would have the choice to be in person or come in through Zoom. We couldn't say require the public to be only Zoom if we're in person. With that, kind of the COVID protocol, you can also, in terms of the mask policing, you can ask someone if they're vaccinated. They don't have to tell you. You certainly can put a policy in place that says, that's fine, you don't have to tell me, but anyone that can't prove positively has to wear a mask. So to Pete's point, that kind of gets into a lot of just gray area, just a lot of extra work in policing. I personally am fine either or. I do think as of now, this format is cleaner and easier and has provided more opportunity for public. But I'm not also opposed to meeting in person either. But as of right now, I think that this is probably the easier, cleaner way to go. Other comments?
I'm neutral. Whatever the group decides.
Jack or Elton, anyone have any strong opinions? Either way.
No, really nothing from me. I mean, I started going to the office this week, so I've been going in person to the office, and I'll be open either way. It would be good to get that adult interaction rather than through Zoom or video, but I guess there's a time and point where we can all be in a building, and either way works for me. No strong opinion one way or another.
Yeah, I guess my position is about the same. I mean, like Jen, I would like us to get back in person as soon as possible, but I don't have a problem if we put that off for a couple more months.
Pete, what, I know your policy and stuff, but from your perspective, from an operations standpoint, I think I'm hearing you prefer it in this format instead.
Yeah,
Correct.
at least for September, let's see where these, I mean, I am a little concerned that numbers of unvaccinated people that are getting the Delta variant is going up again. And so maybe we should just plan to have the September meeting remote, and we can see if if there's been a change or an improvement by that point, and take it, one case at a time. But in the meantime, it probably would be wise to just say the September meeting would be remote, and then we can readdress it then if the numbers continue to drop or if they stay the same. But there's definitely a lot of press over the past week and a half about the numbers switching in the wrong direction again, and that's definitely concerning from my perspective. So,
Okay.
There's no pressure from the public that I see to do it right away. So
yeah, I mean, I've actually heard the opposite. A lot of people have liked the idea that it's easier for them to join from home because they can, they don't have to worry about finding a babysitter or whatever. They can get, they can join the meeting without having to deal with the logistics. So.
All right. I say we keep it in a Zoom format for September, and you know what, we can, maybe we just look at it every meeting to decide what the next meeting is based on what's going on at that time.
And I would also suggest if we do an August one at some point to discuss the moratorium issue, we'll do that remote as well.
Okay.
Especially where I don't think Michael would be there anyway, because it sounds like he travels. So.
All right. Did you have was that all your any other updates?
Not on the projects. We have two. If you want to skip ahead for a second on the gas systems or the future stuff, I've talked to heat.org a few times now. We actually have a conference call set up for next week where they really want us to focus. They really would like a municipal partner in terms of data and study. And they find that our system is a little bit cleaner than the challenges of the big IOUs in terms of some case studies. So they've invited us to join. I have a meeting next week with with heat.org and their two consultants. One's data analysis and one is gas policy. And so we are going to engage in that process and join them. There's a lot of information we can share. And I think that's how we're going to work with them. I think their goal, they're privately funded. They're not funded by either of the IOUs, but the IOUs are participating. And I think that their study is funded. So we'd be more than happy to participate in that. And again, she likes the fact that we have a lot of, we're much more encapsulated and we kind of represent a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, so that and probably be easier to work with us in terms of data gathering in some regards. The IOUs are embarking on some of the bigger, more costly pilots, but we can definitely be a better, help in different ways.
Awesome, thanks. That's great news.
If Jack has to leave at 8:30 and you want to take a vote on project 2015A, I think we should begin that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't know that we had a vote coming up on that, but
I thought you requested that in the in your entry comments.
no, I had just said that we haven't taken a vote, and so there wasn't something that, but we can have a discussion.
So where it stands right now is that we owe the DPU a response tomorrow, and MWEC will be issuing a statement tomorrow on what the next step for the pause is going to be. Actually, I talked to Ron just before this meeting, and he didn't have a final public decision yet. So he is working with Nick Scobo on the reply to the DPU, which will be out tomorrow.
And you'll share that with us when you receive it?
Yeah. I mean, the inclination is that we are gonna try to move forward soon. It might not be tomorrow. It might be within the next week or two, but yeah, the plan is to move forward. I think that, we need to dot some I's and cross some T's first, but I think there have been some changes to the design made during the pause. And I think we're working on a couple other issues with Peabody. And once those issues are resolved, whether that's tomorrow or within the next week, then I think the goal will be to ask the DPU to consider to restart their review of our application to finance.
Yeah, thanks. Let us know as soon as that comes out, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Again, yeah, they're gonna issue a statement tomorrow, but that's the long and the short of what's coming. And there was obviously, everybody knows there was a public hearing on June 22nd at the Peabody Senior Center. There were about 120 people in attendance. About 75 were opponents. And there, it was a good meeting. There was a lot of information shared there by MWEC. There was a lot of questions. A lot of the answers, I believe, have been posted. There's still some answers that are being posted on the MWEC the 2015A website. And I think that I don't know if the board has any new questions about the project but I mean, there's certainly a wealth of information out there. I think that, it's pretty clear where I think we stand. I mean, from the Wakefield perspective, if this project were to get canceled, we're on the hook for $2.7 million. And that's a huge loss for the utility. We still strongly feel that this project is a piece of the long-term solution. And I think that we need to consider that it's an important piece of our supply mix going forward.
I just wanted to say, like, regardless of where this goes or what anyone thinks about the plant, that I participated in the forum, I listened into it and I thought it was just really good. I mean, just a really good kind of exchange of information, conversation, questions and whatnot. And so I just hope that, moving forward, we'll see more of those for some of our other projects, and it can kind of become part of our, the way we operate. And I really think that no matter what, the communities do appreciate the opportunity to, come to the table with questions and comments and things like that.
Agreed. Same. Yeah, there was. I also not live, but after the fact, listened to it as well. I had a couple of just kind of questions around just the numbers on it, where collectively the plant's being built for about what 85 million, but where it's kind of hedging, and just clarification from my part is we're with that about 2033, I think I was seeing that where the plant hedges collectively like a $40 million hedge on the capacity market. Is that kind of a correct analysis from?
I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
That it would be saving because of where we're not having to bid into the market to purchase that capacity at that time. Is that
Yeah, so you're looking at the last pro forma from
kind of, yeah, and not talking this specific. That's why I was trying to be general, knowing that this is open.
Yeah, I think that, and I shared with Jen that pro forma is still 1 year old now. And again, the last forward capacity auction took place in February. And even those numbers are dated, and that forward capacity analysis has come forward, even more significantly based on the fact that we had divergence between the NEMA zone and the other zones in New England. That capacity analysis is even stronger. So.
Okay. And then for the if the project was to be canceled, and that $2.7 million on our hook, there is no like I don't know, lack of a better term, insurance policy, force majeure, anything that would cover in case of something like this happened. And I think that was also kind of mentioned in the forum as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody, well, there's no insurance for project development. And, we signed an EPC contract with Pratt, so that's engineer, procure, and construct. So, that's why we're on the hook for not all of it, but a significant portion of it. So.
And there's no, off ramp there.
Well, yeah, the off ramp is the $21 million as opposed to the 60 million or whatever that, is that part of the project. So the cancellation clause was the 21 million.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat that again, what the cancellation clause was?
The cancellation, so it's an EPC contract. So we signed them to design, engineer, procure, and design the project. So we've spent approximately 9 million so far out of pocket already, and then there's another $21 million that we would owe Pratt in the form of a cancellation if we were to cancel. And our share of that is $2.7 million.
Okay, but during the forum, I think it was Ron had mentioned that somewhere along the line, they got rid of the cancellation clause, which allowed the cost to come down by $2 million.
I don't remember that. I can find out more about that.
So that was something that I wanted to definitely hear more about, because I don't know what that reference to that cancellation, like what would that cancellation clause that was actually like removed mid-process, what would that have gotten us? Like what protection did we forego by essentially like removing or doing away with that cancellation clause? can we find that? I just want to understand that a bit better.
Yeah, we can. Again, I don't think anybody in 2018 or 19 forecasted that a very small number of people were going to have an issue with it. So.
Right, but I'm just wondering, what protection, what level of protection that cancellation clause offered in exchange for the $2 million cost decrease?
Are there any other questions about it or actions or?
I had one question kind of on do we as Wakefield's in the Ford capacity, those payments that come in, are we just getting the capacity, or are there payments that come into us? So are we just getting the hedge of not having to go out to the market, that kind of stability, or is there extra additional financial gains or losses that if we bid in and then the capacity market is actually higher? Is there any financial windfalls that potentially come?
Yeah, that's why in the out years. So the difference between a PPA and a unit ownership is what we're talking about here. So 2015A, we own it, whereas a PPA, you're just simply buying a fixed entity, which is the capacity. So right now, we would be getting the revenue for the capacity that we bid into the market at 468, I think it was. We would get the revenue that we'd be paid for that and offset it against our capacity costs. So if there is a financial benefit to where our position is, then yes, we get the additional benefit. And that's much like Berkshire Wind. When we, if Berkshire Wind, so we're owners of it. So there's a financial transaction that says we're paid for all the energy that Berkshire Wind sells. And then we also have to buy energy based on our PPA. So all that's kind of factored into the power bill. So Mark gets the power bill that we get every month is about that thick, and it's got transactions all throughout it.
So that operates the same way, and that's kind of one of the benefits of owning the generation versus just doing the PPA. Is that we're just not getting the capacity from the where we get it from the PPA.
Yeah. So and so again, our portfolio includes things that we own as well as things that we procure through PPAs, as well as short-term transactions.
And I know it's been a little bit of time since we had kind of like our capacity mix. I know when we layered in the Quebec Hydro, that was accounting for 18%. And then 2015A is projected to be 9%. Is 9% still accurate for our capacity demand, or have we able to kind of move capacity demand down with some of the programs, the efficiencies, or just behavior?
The movement on our capacity requirement hasn't really changed. The bigger movement we're having is on our load management side, obviously running the generators and the battery on our side of the meter has kind of had the biggest impact on capacity assignment. So, but we haven't executed. There's so much unknown about this right now until this is approved and going forward, and we're putting steel in the ground. It would not be in our best interest to execute another capacity deal until we're sure what's happening.
Okay. I didn't know if there was any movement on those numbers since.
No, but on the other side of it, I can give you, I don't know if there's any more concrete discussion, but the NWEC did approve project 2021A at our meeting yesterday. And that project is actually for the development of a PPA for offshore wind. So they're engaged with a offshore wind developer. And we are what by authorizing a project and calling it 2021A, like 2015, is that we're authoring, the way it works is we're authorizing MWEC to spend some money now to go negotiate a contract. So they've presented to the board the high level details of a contract with a offshore wind developer. And we've created a project now, and we've authorized them to go bring that back. And so potentially they would come back with a framework for a project. So, and again, if we look at the chronology of 2015A, most likely this fall, September or October board meeting, they'll be coming back to us with a project that we would want to vote to join. And then that would be similar to the vote we took in 2015A. And then sometime after that, probably in the beginning of next year, we would actually have a PPA to execute. And so that was the vote we took in 2017. So if you kind of look at the sequence of events, so I would imagine that we're going to get an option to participate in a project called 2021A coming up this fall, and then we'll execute a PPA some date after that. So if you kind of look at those chronologies, that's how it'll work. But so there is a offshore wind component out there. We will have the opportunity to buy into it. I will definitely come back with a recommendation to participate at some level, and we'll do that based on, the economics, the availability, and what it means to a more, to a diversified supply mix. But we will definitely take a piece of that. I will recommend probably that we're going to take a piece of that project. Excuse me. The way it looks right now is it's not going to be available to the 2025 or 26 timeframe. That's the time horizon for it.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Any other commissioner comments or any questions?
I don't have any at this time.
All right. Okay. Moving on to section E, new business. Section 1, the June heat waves. Just one quick thing on that, Pete, before you go. I actually got kudos from someone for July 6th for the cruise on the very quick restoration and everything. So I'm just passing that along to the cruise and stuff. So if you could do that. Yeah, they've done a great job. I mean, we really have had very few issues, in considering the weather we've had. We've had over 9.5 inches of rain in Wakefield, I think. And just as a note, operationally, I think this is one thing I'm pretty proud of. We had 4 inches of rain on Mother's Day of 2008, and we had gas system failures in multiple locations throughout Wakefield. We had whole sections of Elm Street in the west side. We had out on Greenwood. We had a whole area that was out for several days without gas. We had a section off of Water Street that was out for several days, and that was all because of water infiltration to the gas system. And that was only for 4 inches of rain. We've had almost 9 inches of rain, and we had a single service that had a problem. So we've come a long way in terms of that amount of water would have crippled us before. And to show that the system is pretty tight now, we had a single service that got plugged. So that's been pretty, from an operational perspective, that's been pretty good. From a wind and perspective, fortunately, a lot of these events haven't been significant wind events. Even the tropical storm was it was a very short time frame. In terms of the heat wave, though, we have had 9 days over 90 in the June month, and we're going to hit a couple more this week. And I think overall the system performed very well. I think Dave can talk a little bit about it, but I think
one of the things he'll mention is the transformer load management stuff that we've been doing, which is really the next version of, like, the next level of what Vinny was talking about back in January and the benefit that it's had for us. Dave? You're mute.
Yeah, no, just before we got into the heat waves, we ran through the Vinny ran all the transformers to see what was over 150%. We identified 8 transformers that we wanted to replace. So the guys replaced the 7 transformers. The 8th one we didn't need to do. We didn't replace them. We added. So we split the cribs. We added a transformer to the area. And that the modifications based on meter data that we collect, and it goes through the system, and then we can look at transformer loading historically as well for over a period of time. It's proven to be very effective, and this is our second summer. The first go around we used last year to see how it worked. It's been fine-tuned this year. We've worked on it, and we didn't have one transformer that was overloaded. We had a fuse, an issue, but for the most part, we had no transformer failures during the heat waves. So no secondary burn downs. The system operated very, very well, and that's due in 2 parts. One is it's certainly due to the work that the guys are doing. We've done a significant amount of upgrades, replacing a lot of older secondary. We've upgraded and converted areas from 4 kV to 13.8. And Vinny's really looked at the system very closely to make sure that we don't have anything that's overloaded, whether it's circuits or all the way down to the transformers and the secondaries. So, the heat waves that we've gone through, the system has held up very, very well. So, and that transformer load management tool is very critical. It's helpful with design, and it's helpful with analyzing potential problems.
Yeah, I personally want to say, congrats. And, I know that all of that back end, there's a lot of work that goes into that, good data in, good results, where you're seeing those things here. And a testament to that is, the heat waves where the system does get, stressed and challenged, and, it performs with flying colors. So please pass on my, thanks and appreciation around those things.
Will do. Thank you.
And I agree. And I think as we see, the uneven effects of electrification, it's going to be great to continue to kind of monitor the system and see where there are pockets that might be creating, distribution system challenges and the need for new infrastructure. So it's great that you're doing that proactively.
Yeah, and one of the things I've asked Dave and Vinny to look at is our system standards in terms of services and secondaries and transformer sizing going forward, that we might increase our standards in terms of our default installation of an overhead can is usually a 37.5. We might increase that to a 50, especially in anticipation of, so there's less situations where we're going to have to upgrade a whole area, and in terms of secondary cable sizing and things like that, making sure that all our cable sizing is consistent with a load for a 50 and service cables and all that, so that as customers add load potentially through heating or electric vehicles, that our system won't require as much upgrading on the fly. If you look at it from a system perspective, from transmission down, we're very solid. We have the 115, 4 transmission lines feeding us. We're probably the most blessed muni in the state because of our proximity to the Montrose ring station. The fact that we can be fed off of 4 separate transmission lines is unheard of. And so then we have our transformer capacity at the 2 big substations at BB and at Wallace, and we have more than ample capacity for the next 30 years at that level. Now it's at the distribution level, the 13.8 conversion work that we're doing, beefing up that backbone, and then the final mile is obviously the secondaries and the transformers and the services. So making sure we're looking at our standards going forward on that, so that we're, as we replace or upgrade stuff, just that it's going to be able to handle enhanced capacity over the future. But like Jen said, seeing the pockets as they develop and continuing to look at this is it's gonna save us time and money, because we won't be doing it in emergency situations. We can be doing upgrades proactively.
And Pete had an excellent idea that he was talking to me about, is that, look at the service mains too. So we can look at that and kind of anticipate where there might be service upgrades going on. So as part of our, as we go around and we check the meters, we're trying to collect some data from the town. And if we have to check the house, but what size service do they have? Is it a 60 amp, 100 amp? And then we can identify areas that are potential growth and development just on houses upgrading their services will give us an indication of, how we handle the system upgrade in that area too.
Yeah, I mean, part of that came from a very interesting, for the heat.org, Zainab. I had a long conversation with her, and one of the things she talked about was that Columbia Gas was very willing to pay for electric conversions for appliances and things in the Lawrence, Andover, North Andover area as part of that. And one of the things that they found was that many of the locations didn't have adequate electric services to enable them to, for example, they provided a lot of countertop convection ovens, and people wanted to convert to a full convection stove instead of their gas stove again. And they weren't able to do it because they only had a 60 amp service to their house. So the layers of that gas question also translate over to the electric side. And one of the pieces of data that we want to help them gather is what percentage of typical older housing stock has a service at 100 amps or less, because that's almost obviously a limiting factor to electrification. And so we're going to try to work with them on that. We have 13,000 services. How many can we truly identify the size of the service at the location based on data that we have? And what would it take to get the rest of that data, so that we can see how many 60 amp services, how many hundreds, how many 200s, and so on.
And we'll add that data to our GIS system as well, so we have it.
Is that that's all? I mean, that's awesome. I personally appreciate stuff like that. Some of that house service, is some of that recorded in is it something we can pull from the permit office and that?
Yeah, that's what Vinny's working on right now. So anything that's had a permit pulled over the past so many years, we could see that. But do we,
Cool.
what other sources of data are there some assumptions we can make? So we have the size of every, Vinny did a good job about 8 or 9 years ago when he first started. He wanted to create our GIS system. The first thing he did was he surveyed our whole system. He walked the entire system, took all the data in. So we know the size of every service cable, or for the most part, every service cable, but that doesn't necessarily mean we know what size the service inside the house is. Is it a 100 amp panel? Is it 200? Is it 60? So just because we know the service cable doesn't necessarily mean we know what size the house service is.
Is that on MLS? I don't think it is when houses are sold.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
It's there, but I wouldn't rely on it.
It's not accurate. Interesting.
No, I wouldn't rely on that data. I mean, it might give you a clue, but it's
It would be another piece of data like the permits and
Yep.
other things, but it's not necessarily.
yeah. Question, just kind of
Pete,
circling. Oh, go ahead.
One question on that. Sorry, Tom. Pete, are you guys doing any sort of analysis to indicate the load growth if it spreads around like peanut butter on a jelly? I mean, on a peanut butter on a piece of bread. What kind of constraints that would introduce to the distribution system, or no?
So in terms of if it was uniform across the board,
Yeah, let's say every house is getting an electric vehicle, or maybe 50% of the houses are converting to heat pumps. Would the system be capable of handling that type of load increase?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the substation level, yes, from the 13.8 circuit level, most
Right.
likely, but we might end up adding a couple more circuits. Certainly from a substation transformer capacities perspective, we have a lot of room for growth. So it would be just a, if we saw pockets developing, we would probably extend, another circuit out of Wallace or BB to, handle the additional capacity. And much like Dave was talking about, like splitting cribs at the secondary
Right.
level, we split up some of the bigger circuits and add additional circuit capacity.
Yeah, maybe one of these days I'll come and talk to Vinny about it, because I was personally involved with that analysis in Lawrence where we went down to the service level. So have a few ideas that you guys could probably implement or work on. So
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Vinny likes to knowledge transfer, so
I
I'm
have
sure he would be very, very appreciative of that. Yeah, and definitely, being new to the board, definitely sit down with Vinny. When I came on the board, he showed me the GIS system, all the work that he did there, and also Raven on the gas side. Definitely, I commend them for that. And coming from my perspective, if we were to hire a consulting company to do that, first of all, the work wouldn't be as thorough as it is, and it would have been exponentially more expensive. Don't tell Vinny that.
So when Vinny first started, we didn't have GIS, and the first thing I told him to do was come back to me with a recommendation of the system. And I told him, take the whole summer. I want you to go to every IOU, every community that you can, find out what they're using, and come back and tell me which one's the best. So he really immersed himself that first summer in trying to pick the best GIS system. And Braintree does this, and Boston Edison does that, and and kind of came back with his analysis, and that was the starting point. So he was invested in it. And by the next summer, he was walking the entire system himself. He had got the handhelds and captured all the data. And so that was the foundation of our system. And that, again, I think that was probably, I hate to admit it because Vinny feels like he's still a kid, but I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely sit with Vinny and Raven. I would recommend that. Circling back to the heat wave, in terms of like our call outs for peak demand reduction, both the EV chargers, the connected homes, the social media, all the call out. I thought the code red, the reverse 911 was great. Do we have any meaningful data that came back from that? The connected homes, did we see a reduction? And I'm just kind of where I'm poking at here is do we have data to back up kind of the justification for these things? Are they working? Do we need to kind of push? Do we need more penetration on people signing up their thermostats? Is there work to be done around there? So
Well, we need to keep pushing that. I think it's too early to have all that data yet in terms of, I don't think we even have the the reports from Connected Homes yet for June.
Okay.
Or a complete analysis of it. The idea to do the reverse 911, I think, we kind of came up with that. A couple other utilities are using it, and I think it helps. It's just another way to get word out. And that it's a tool we have available to us now, so we might as well use it. We obviously do the press releases and we put stuff on the website, but it's just another mechanism to get the word out. I think we have to be careful not to do it every day. Like if we're gonna have a 90-degree day tomorrow and the next day, unless we think it's definitely got a chance to be the capacity peak for the year, we probably don't want to pepper people with reverse 911 calls. But by the same token, we really thought there was a chance that window could be the capacity peak for the year. So we and I wouldn't hesitate to do it again in July or August if we really thought there was a chance that would be the capacity peak. We just can't, we don't want it to be ignored either. So you got to be careful the tool that you use.
No, definitely a fine balance. And actually, one of the things I actually reached out to MWEC for my nests. So it was interesting. The first three I think the first 3 peak days that were in July. All of my nests went into the Nest calls that program rush hour, but the peak demand response. They participated. It was great. Got the text and the email and then the nest itself. But then that where we thought it was going to be the peak demand got a notification, but they didn't enter into that mode. And I reached out, was just wondering like if it was something went wrong with my system or if it was a known thing. But apparently there is also a limitation of the number of times that Google allows that to be run per month, which I find a little bit shocking in that aspect. That there's this tool, but you can only use it 3 times a month.
Yeah.
So it's a little.
I think they're trying to work on that, but yeah, dealing with the bigger manufacturers and the bigger, the Nest and the bigger ones has certainly been a challenge. So.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that, but unfortunately, those are the ones we kind of have to go after because that's where quite frankly, the penetration is where those numbers are at to really make the impact.
Yeah, I thought the use of the reverse 911 was great. I hope we do that again, and it sounds like we will. It just also is customer education. Like, what is this? Why is this going on? I think it's all good. We just need to make sure we wrap the education around it too. And, the one thing I would say is in looking at some of the municipal building data, I'm a little bit surprised that usage actually didn't change in 2020 and 2021 with COVID much at all. And I wonder whether municipal buildings participated in that event. So I think we might have some work with the town and our energy management team, whoever they are, for our municipal buildings on these events, as well as just, in general. So we'll be talking about that at our next meeting of the Green Communities Project for sure.
Okay. Any other discussion or anything from the operation updates for the heat wave? Right. Pete,
And one of the things we wanted to do is semi-annually kind of go over the goals and objectives. So we can do it quickly. I'll just give you the information if you want to just follow along, and I'll give you a couple of the highlights of places that stuff that we originally targeted might end up slipping. But in terms of lost time accidents, we have 0 so far. Knock on wood, we've had 0 motor vehicle accidents in either category. We've had 2 personal injuries, or we call them OSHA recordable injuries. There was a cut and somebody dropped something on their foot. In terms of employee training, we are going to participate. There's a program that the town is doing on appreciating diversity. All supervisors and supervisory personnel for the town went through it a couple weeks ago, and it's going to be rolled out to the rest of the town employees. So that's one of the things we're going to work on is a town-wide focus on the appreciating diversity. In terms of COVID, it's ongoing. We discussed some of the stuff earlier, and I think, my personal opinion is that we're not done with this yet. I think if other people might think we are, but I really still don't feel like we're out of the woods on this. I think there's definitely, we're lucky to be in Massachusetts where our percentage of vaccinated people is high, but I think that the more people that aren't vaccinated continues to support the possibility of variants, and it could come back to hurt us all. So I think that, we're going to still be in this COVID world for the rest of the year and probably into next year. So we just need to continue to manage that. Our current policy in the building is that those people that have been vaccinated are not required to wear masks, and those that are not vaccinated have to wear masks. I can't ask you if you've been vaccinated, but if you want to prove that you are, then you are exempted from wearing a mask, and that's consistent with the state and the CDC.
How is the compliance?
It's been
Are
very
you
good.
policing the people who are supposed to be wearing masks all the
Yeah,
time?
and they're doing a very good job. I mean, although, you know, it's not public, it is public. Everybody knows who is and isn't vaccinated, and the people that are supposed to be wearing masks have all been very good. So
Great.
they, you know, and they know that they've had more than an ample opportunity to get the vaccination. They've chosen not to, and that they're aware that the rules are different, and it is what it is. So, in terms of operations, we're on target for Sadie and Katie. Capital projects, I think on the electric side, I talked a little bit about what's fallen behind a little bit, and some of the 4 kV work in the overhead has slipped a little bit because we did lose a little bit of time on the underground replacement of the feeder section for circuit 4. And we're also, so we're going to step up our work on that. We probably won't finish all the 4 kV conversion on the Water Street side of Wakefield Ave, because we are focusing more on the other side, on the West Water, Richardson area, which ties a little bit more into the burn station, but it's also based on operational need. We feel that there's greater value in finishing the upgrade on that side right now from an operational perspective. And then we'll go back to finishing circuit 9, what we call circuit 9, which is on the other side of Wakefield Ave substation. And on the gas side, we have done the Emerson and Cedar Streets are the ones that might slip into next year based on what we've modified so far this year. We added Grafton, Sylvan, and Gale, and we tried to purposely stay on side streets to free up details for the town. And so right now, Cedar and Emerson, we're going to get back to Vernon and Lowell next, and we will finish those. And we'll probably be working on Cedar and Emerson at the end of the year. In terms of maintenance and operational services, I think we're on target for everything in that bucket. Vegetation management is complete. We're probably going to exceed the goal of 100 services. Class 2 leaks, they come and go, but I think we're sitting on 2 or 3 right now. And class 3 leak reduction, we're on target for the end of the year on that. In terms of customer service, I think we've updated the About Us section and the solar section. Just a note on solar, I might cover it later, I'm not sure, but so the solar program, we budgeted $75,000 this year to fund it on our own. Fortunately, because of the work that Vinny and Dave have been doing and the fact that we were so organized, in the final month, in like late May into June, they found that a few other munis weren't going to spend all their money. So, Dave, how much was it? It was like 35 or 40 grand became available.
Yeah, 36. Yeah.
36 grand became available. And because of where we were on projects, we were able to take that money. So we got an extra 36 grand from the DOER program. And again, that's Dave and Vinny 100% being ready to react to that immediately. So that was money that we would have spent out of the 75. So that gives us a little more cushion in that 75 that we budgeted.
Awesome job.
They did a great job on that.
Are we still on, even with the 36, are we still on track for the budget or
We'll probably exceed it. I'll keep you posted. It'll just delay exceeding it. I think we were at 60 grand out of the 75 before we got that 36. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep you posted if it looks like we're going to exceed it. But right now, I think, that gave us a little bit more cushion. So.
Awesome.
In terms of some of our upgrade stuff, some of it's been done, some of it we're working on. Customer feedback and education, we've done 2 customer specific topics, and we are going to already, and we're going to work on one for the fall. We switched to Abode in terms of our educating our customers on the heating and HVAC side. That's a huge asset. We're already seeing benefits from that. We're starting to see the Abode reports
on their consultation with customers, come in with the applications for rebates. And so we could see the benefit of that education process. On the electric vehicle side, obviously the challenge right now is the availability of vehicles. Sylvia's been trying to do a great job of getting anybody to show up with an electric vehicle for our farmers markets, and there's virtually none available. So, but as soon as we can get that, we'll get that back out again. I've ordered my hybrid, and it's 26 weeks away. We're on a waiting list for sometime next year for an electric pickup truck. And we're on a waiting list right now to get the old Nissan that our lease ran out on that. We're waiting for a replacement. We're gonna get one of the all-wheel drives that's becoming available, but we're on a waiting list for that for later in the fall. So the electric vehicle market has been crippled by the COVID chip issue. So
Is the farmer's market thing test drives, or is it just to like look at them?
When we can get vendors to come, we were doing test drives, but right now it was just to look at them. But now we don't even have a vehicle to look at. So
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I have an electric vehicle, and a lot of people do. If this becomes a major problem, I mean, I'm happy to lend my vehicle. It's not as new as some of the other ones, but I'm sure we could find an individual with a newer vehicle in Wakefield who would be at the farmer's market anyway and who'd be willing to lend a vehicle. So it's an option if you want to consider it.
we gotta get Mark to buy a Tesla, like the sporty one, and bring it down.
Oh, good, because I'm a cheapo, so mine's the like cheapest thing out there. I'm glad to know someone's got money.
Might have to consider the insurance coverage on the car.
Yeah, in terms of letting people drive it, yeah. The commercial plan is rolled out. We'll keep promoting that. I think we need to reach out a couple different ways to our commercial customers. We've tried to do emails. We've only had I think maybe only 1 or 2 inquiries on the program. It's been very slow on the commercial side. Financial, Mark, anything you want to?
Nothing. So, I mean, we're on track. I mean, the receivables, I mean, the graph, excuse me. If you want to refer to the graphs in the packet, we're doing surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but we're doing okay. We're holding our own, and we're making a little progress on the receivables. I thought it would be different. I really thought it would be losing ground on it. So we're in a good spot.
I think that the work that's been done, so we agreed to not shut anybody off till the beginning of July, and we haven't even shut anybody off yet. The first one's potentially going off tomorrow. So we're already midway through July. And if you look back, the last time we shut anybody off was October of 2019. So, and to see that number where it is right now, that's all a testament to the work that Mark, Sylvia, and Rob and Larry have been doing.
We continuing to make phone calls and
phone call after phone call after phone call.
Talk to people, work with people. You know, and it's a more beneficial outcome for the person too, rather than have their service terminated. We don't want to just say it's our last you know, it's the last thing we want to do as well as the customer too. So
yeah, so I mean, we've made a tremendous amount of progress in that area. You can see it on the chart, so that shows. And again, that's all the legwork that Rob and Mark and Sylvia have been doing. Really reaching out and working with these folks. In terms of communications, I think some of the stuff is ongoing. We should at some point talk about what we want to do in terms of next steps, in terms of strategic planning. Maybe we make that an agenda item in September about next phase of what we want to do in that regard. In terms of communications with the boards, I think it's at a pretty high level right now. We'll continue to do that. Especially in terms of the DPW, I think we're very close with them right now, working on a lot of stuff. In terms of staff capabilities, I think we've brought senior staff to a lot of meetings already, and that's going to continue. Jeff's scheduled to be at the September meeting to give an IT update, and we're probably going to have Sarah join us in October, November on a vehicle update. Hopefully we'll have good news about vehicles actually being available to talk about, as opposed to just a lot of stuff that we've we're hoping to get somewhere in the future. So,
And that, so town council started just on that, town council, was it last night? No, Monday night. Started discussing the green communities fleet policy. They potentially have a vote coming up on adopting a fleet policy at their next meeting. And then that'll trickle down to the other boards, including ourselves.
yeah, I think Sarah will be able to talk about that. That's why we're looking at her in the October, November timeframe. I think some of our vehicles are going to be exempt because of obviously not all the types of vehicles we use have, you know, electric or hybrid options, but to the extent that they can, we can procure them.
Yeah, I would say, you know, the majority of our vehicles fall under the exempt bucket. And I would also say the vehicles that don't fall under the exempt bucket, we're probably the, you know, department that's furthest ahead in terms of the vehicle adoption of, you know, fuel efficient vehicles.
Actually, did we confirm that WMGLD vehicles are considered municipal vehicles?
I would think so because they're blue plated.
Yeah, we're state plates.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then I'll be needing some numbers from you shortly.
I think Joe was including it in the fuel numbers, wasn't he?
Oh, okay, great. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think Joe has all the fuel numbers, so I think ours are included in that. In terms of environmental, the final portion, environmental legislation, I think we're well on the way to our compliance with the 2050 goal. I think we could talk about this a little bit in strategy, but we do have some opportunities over the next several years to, we're going to be almost at the 50% this year. And I think we're going to have the opportunity to go a little bit beyond 50% next year. And then some of the projects that are potentially going to be available to us over the next 10 years will definitely have the opportunity to move us, you know, well past the 2030 goal, well in advance of the 2030 goal. If we factor in what I was talking about with offshore wind, there's also a potential hydro project out of Maine that we may be able to get a small piece of. And so again, our strategy is going to be that we're not going to see, you know, major pieces of large power plants anymore because there's not going to be large power plants built anymore. So we're going to have a lot more smaller pieces of projects. So and so there is going to be opportunities like that, and MWEC's being very proactive. They've begun talking about a large scale utility battery project out in Ludlow at some point. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot of things. There's Berkshire 3 that we're starting to discuss a little bit. So there's a lot of different things that are moving pieces that we'll be layering in over the next several years. All projects that we're gonna investigate, they'll become, as I described, special projects. We'll put a little bit of funding into them to investigate them. We'll vote whether we want to participate or not. And then ultimately you'd either sign an ownership agreement or a purchase power agreement and proceed. So there's a lot of stuff that's on the plate in those regards as we increase our position over the next several years. So I think that covers, I think in terms of supporting decarbonization of heating and transportation, I think we're probably one of the leaders on the electric vehicle side in terms of public chargers and in terms of our charger program. I think we're probably in the muni world, we're definitely, we've done more than anybody in Massachusetts. In the community support for the heating stuff, I think, you know, working with a board and continuing to increase our profile there. I think the moratorium has been a great, I mean, at the end of the day, the discussion over, you know, 4 units or 3 single families is it's all well and good, but it's a very small number. The real impact that the moratorium has had is one of the things we discussed, which is that, you know, the the over 1,000 units of new housing stock that's coming into Wakefield over the next couple of years is going to be all electric heat. And so that one thing has had more of an impact than anything we could talk about. The only concern I had with the MICA discussion is that we have to be careful because we have been very consistent with that in other places. And I think, we just have to be careful. And the statements that he made weren't 100% the truth. I won't call it, but there were some misstatements there. And I think that we just have to be careful because we have told other people in Micah's situation that we weren't going to give them gas. So.
Just on that, I think, the suggestions that I made, and thanks for already implementing those, where the multifamily, and I haven't gone back and looked at the form, but just like make it very transparent and clear, like maybe even at the top of the gas form, put, that there is a moratorium on, right now multifamily. And so that we just 100% remove any sort of,
Confusion.
miscommunication. Not that I'm saying that there was miscommunication, but just make it crystal clear so that we don't have this situation.
Yep.
Right, and also I do it. Yeah, so I totally agree. Like under the website, I'd like to also, put in a plug for escalating the kind of improvements to the natural gas moratorium language and the forms and things like that that are already kind of underway as a result of some of this. But the other thing too is just, getting, again, like heat pump materials out there. I'm hearing people that don't have gas access are looking at propane, and that is not a good option for our customers. So I think we need to make sure that they understand that electric heat pumps are an option they need to be looking at, because I'm a little bit nervous about those stories that I'm hearing about these new large homes going to propane.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent we can, our website's got a lot of information on it now, and I think there's only, we can lead them to water, we can't always make them drink. So, I mean, I do know that, I'm not sure that, are they looking at propane as a heating and cooling source or just for cooking and for hot water?
I'm not positive, but I do believe there are instances where they're using it as a heating source.
Wow, I mean, that's a huge tank and very expensive.
Yes, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that everyone's, that we do the best we can to be clear about, what the options are.
Yeah, I mean, if they approach us, we're definitely talking to them, obviously. Jim's become an expert in referring them to the heat pump stuff, so.
Okay, great. But one thing I talked about before is whether even like on the application form, there could be like a pop-up or something saying, have you considered, a heat pump before you kind of go down this route?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm requiring now is anyone that does, they have to at least at a minimum have an audit. So that's an opportunity for the auditor to discuss that with them as well. It's part of a home energy audit. So if you want to put gas in, you have to have had an energy audit. We're not requiring that you implement all the measures, but if you want to have a gas service, you have to, for the single families, you have to have an audit. So. And again, there's no cost to the customer, so it's not a penalty.
Does that audit with also just kind of in that same vein, does that trigger a potential consultation with Abode, or can that?
It could. I mean, again, when they talk about the energy conservation measures, that's one of the things that's, out there. They talk about our programs and what's available to them, so.
Okay. Just kind of on programs, and I didn't see it, and I didn't bring it up. So just update on the green choice power option. If you have an update, if there's.
Yeah, the marketing materials gonna go out starting this week. Jeff spent a few days working on making sure from a technical perspective we could do it. Well, we knew we could do it. It was just what was it gonna take.
We tested it today, Jeff and I, yeah, so, and it looked good, so.
So you'll see the marketing stuff starting. It's actually on the website already, but in terms of like a bill stuffer and an advertisement in the paper and stuff like that, you'll see more of that coming up. I think actually, Sylvia, did you have it on the table at the farmer's market, or going forward we will?
Going forward, we will, and it'll be coming out in the next group of bills as a bill stuffer.
And will there be so I'm just looking, where is that on the website? Or is it
Was it on the bottom?
on the bottom? Outage is,
I'll push Jeff. I thought it was on one of the highlighted things on the bottom.
just poking around here.
In any case, there's going to be a press release probably next week, and the bill stuffers are going out with the next set of bills.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if we, one of the things that, like, if you guys do a post and have a static part of the web page, that's great. Then that can be used to push out to other social media as well. So.
So that's kind of where we are. Any other questions?
Not for me, it sounds great.
I don't have, anyone else have any questions?
Jack,
Oh, no,
you're
for
still
me.
with us.
I'll take silence as a no. All right. Any other matters not anticipated? Anyone have anything they want to bring up? Go once, going twice? Nope. All right. Don't know that we don't need to do any executive session.
Not that I know. We're good.
All right.
I'm just double checking that I covered everything.
Someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the July 14th, 2021 Commissioners meeting.
Second.
Seconds. All right. Commissioner Corsi,
Aye.
Commissioner Calais,
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty,
Aye.
Commissioner Washaw,
Aye.
oh, still with us, and myself, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.